there! Welcome back to Art Snaps, or just a very warm welcome if you're a first-time listener. I'm Katie, and as the Engagement Officer for Swindon Museum and Art Gallery's Art on Tour project, I've been spending lockdown talking about Swindon's art collection in this podcast. Today we're on episode 11, and we're going to look at artworks by Swindon Railway artist Hubert Cook. And I think this is the first time that I've chosen to focus on just one artist for an Art Snap. And I've decided to talk about Hubert Cook today because there's a wonderful display of his work at Steam Museum of the Great Western Railway in Swindon right now. And the pieces on show belong to Swindon Museum and Art Gallery's collection and are on loan as part of Art on Tour. So I thought I'd talk about a few of them here since we can't view the works themselves at the moment and I'm unable to give tours of the exhibition as I originally intended. And on the screen you'll see an early lithograph by Cook, which I'm going to chat about in a moment. But first, let's hear a little bit more about the man himself. And it's great to be able to bring a bit of local interest to this podcast because Cook was born in Swindon in 1901 and he worked at the GWR Works in Swindon for around 28 years. And it's amazing to see how he managed to become an artist whilst in a career which in itself required quite demanding hours, and the journey he took was really quite unique. He entered the GWR in 1916 when he was 15 years old, and after a 5 years apprenticeship in the locomotive department he was employed as a machinist for about 21 years, and was able to make his job at the railway factory work alongside his artistic career for pretty much the duration of this time. In 1927 he enrolled at the Swindon School of Art and alternated between day and evening classes to fit them in around his factory work. And in that same year, the GWR held the first of its arts and craft exhibitions in Paddington Station. Over the years, these annual shows were held either in Paddington or venues in Swindon, and Cook became a regular exhibitor and prize winner. During that time, he caught the attention of one Percy Haig Jowett, who was principal of the Central School of Arts and Crafts in London. And Jowett became something of a spokesperson for Cook over the years, and in 1935 he organised for him to undertake a scholarship at the Central School of Art 1 day a week, which the Swindon Education Committee and GWR supported with a railway pass and leave of absence with pay. This was the first time a railway worker had been supported in this way to pursue an artistic career, and certainly this was not a wasted opportunity, as Cook has given us so many interesting and atmospheric images recording the workshops of the GWR. The exhibition at Steam Museum showcases paintings, drawings and lithographs from Swindon's collection, dating from the 1930s, when he was still early in his career, to the 1960s, by which time he had left the Swindon Works and was a well-respected artist. In fact, he'd become internationally successful, as he had exhibited at the Paris Salon in 1959. The work shown here is called Hydraulic Riveters, and is one of Cook's early lithographs. It was created in 1937, the same year he began to experiment with lithography at the Central School of Art. And this is a printing technique which involves applying oil and ink to a metal plate and enables the artist to create a wide range of marks and tone. Here we can see that Cook has achieved a great sense of atmosphere in his contrast between light and dark, with the light capturing the actions of the workers and their machinery and throwing the background into darkness. Another great lithograph on show is a Welder in a boiler shop, which was created the year after Hydraulic Riveters. And I think this piece shows more confidence with the lithography process, in that it's slightly looser and somewhat more expressive. And I love the way Cook has captured the difference between the bright hot sparks falling from the welding rod and the bright soft smoke all radiating from this central point of intense light. We can really see how he's using his experience in the railway to fuel his work and be more experimental with his technique. In fact, this great piece was actually exhibited in the Royal Academy a few years later, in 1943. In 1943, he also seems to be revisiting the theme of the welder, as he also painted this piece, which, like the lithograph, shows a figure in an asbestos suit with braced legs, hunched shoulders and clenched fists. And though we can't see the face, we can sense the concentration through the body. And like in the lithograph, the strong light coming from the welding torch hits the suit and mask and illuminates some of the surrounding machinery. But despite the similarities, the fact that it's a painting and not a lithograph transforms the scene. He uses a quite impressionistic technique, by which I mean quick and expressive dashes of paint, to capture the action and energy of the factory. The detail that's captured in the lithographs is replaced by this great swirl of painterly energy. Since I'm looking at the works chronologically, I'm back to lithographs again now, and I decided to add this one in because it's probably one of my favourite lithographs on display. It shows 3 men in the boiler works preparing a boiler plate. And my knowledge of this kind of work is very limited, so I couldn't tell you exactly what they're doing, but the triangular composition is really strong and pulls me back to it time and time again. The eye moves so easily between the figures, taking in their tension and their struggle, which can be seen in the great strained arm span of the figure in the foreground and the hunched, concentrated pose of the figure on top of the plate. Another thing I enjoy about this piece, and indeed much of Cook's work, is the use of line, which at times shows great graphic precision and at others makes use of a more expressive and gestural technique. This expression of line can really be seen in some of Cook's drawings, like this piece from 1951 called Rolling Mills, which was executed with charcoal and graphite. Cook has captured the moving figures of the workers with such swiftness that we really get a sense of rapid movement. The figure to the right even seems to have 2 heads, and there's a ghost of a 3rd figure to the left of the drawing. What we're seeing in this, and much of Cook's work, is not a depiction of the technical working processes within the workshop, but rather a desire to create moments of tension and action, and to give the viewer a sense of the speed, heat and energy of the GWR factory. There's no attempt to create a narrative or to heroicise the workers. Most of the time we don't even see their faces. It's all about this constant struggle between man and metal, which was a huge part of Swindon's working life at this time. I want to end with a late painting by Cook called The Toilers, which was made in 1965, long after he had left the GWR and retired to Cornwall. It shows how he was still inspired by his experiences of the railway, and in fact all of his images from the 1950s and 60s were produced after he left his position there, and were most likely created with the aid of his memory and sketches he made whilst he was working. So The Toilers is very much a piece made from memory, and I think this comes across in the great expressive speed and energy with which the 2 men are depicted, so much so that they are almost inseparable from the factory surrounding them. Technical precision is nowhere to be seen, and he's focused on creating an image of intense action with thick, rapid strokes of paint. Personally, I think that this is one of the most powerful pieces in the exhibition, and I love the fact that Cook was so inspired by his experiences of the railway long after he had left. That brings us to the end of this week's Art Snap, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about Hubert Cook as much as I've enjoyed talking about him. And we'd love to hear any thoughts you have on this or the other Art Snap podcasts, so do drop us a comment on this or any of our other social media channels. You can find Art on Tour on Facebook by searching Art on Tour 2020 or Instagram by searching @Swindon Gallery Art on Tour. And don't forget that all our content, including family and learning activities, are available through www.swindonmuseumandartgallery.org.uk/artontour. Thanks very much for listening. Take care and bye for now.